SiriusXM is where moments happen, and you'll find them here 24/7. In music, talk, sports, comedy, and news. Live and on demand. And they're on in your car, online, or on the app so you won't miss a thing. Visit SiriusXM.ca/never-miss-a-beat. Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to the very first episode of CMA Live, presented by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and tonight is a no-joke episode. This episode in particular has been circled on our calendar between executive producer Frank Spezzano and myself. This is one that we've been really looking forward to, and for several reasons. It's called The Influencers, and that is a broad term used for the individuals who we have on tonight. You know, there are special people within our industry that go above and beyond, that inspire creativity, that create content that all of us enjoy. And what we wanted to do with tonight's show is really present a nice selection of people who are influencers that represent perhaps different segments of the market, be it high-end, fabrication type installs, be it regular installs and how to run a shop, or maybe, product reviews, be it product testing, be it maybe some advice on business. We think we've got a select group of people that kind of cover all those different facets of our business and industry. And we can't be more excited to present them to you tonight. We decided to go with a little bit different of a format, in the spirit of really digging deep with these guys and getting to know them and getting to know their story. This is a little bit of a blend. We have some live guests. We also have some pre-recorded that we took the time to do really, really deep, piercing interviews. So above and beyond our normal show, I think what you're going to see tonight is really a glimpse and a better understanding of how, what ticks within these guys' head and how they got to where they are today. So without further ado, I'm going to start the show off. First, I mentioned a balance of different guests that cover different facets. We also have a balance of Canadians and Americans. So we're going to start off first with one of our very own, resident of BC, British Columbia. He's been on with us before on our CMA Connected episodes, and he's been on YouTube for quite some time, and he's got such a great following. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. His name is Anthony Jarantilla. Anthony, welcome to CMA Live, bud.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tonight's episode is a special one, as I just mentioned, and I think you can agree with me that some of the guests that we have on this evening are people that we all listen to or are influenced by. Would you not agree?
I'm just honored to be here. Like, the names that you guys show me, I'm like really, like, you want me on the show too? I'm like, okay. So I've looked up to these guys for a while.
Well, let's just set the stage, okay? I wanted you with me while we did this. We're starting with you. Anthony J350 is your tag. And we're gonna jump into the go fast, have fun thing. But we also have Dean Bayette from 5-Star Car Stereo. Dean and Fernando. We've got Matt Schaefer, former Installer of the Year from Mosaic Design. We've got Derek Willinston from Williston Audio Labs is joining us tonight, and we're going to end the evening off with another fellow Canadian, Tony Denke, from Twofold Biz, who everybody knows because he brings a unique blend of advice and a format that's really unique, and we're going to get to talk about that. So, you ready to do this, Anthony?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So I wanted to start with you, Anthony. You are probably the youngest guy in the group. You have your own style. You have your own deal going on. Man, I guess I want to start from the beginning. Why don't we start with, has Anthony always been a car audio nut?
I was brought into it because I used to work at an electronics store before. So I used to work for Future Shop, and they have the department. So I started off slinging CDs and video games, and I've always loved cars. And they're like, hey, like, you really like cars. Do you want to try this department? I did sales for a bit. Then I got my way into installation, and it's been history ever since. So I've been in the game for about 13 going on 14 years as far as installing professionally.
So it's you're not new to the game. It's you're young, like I said, but you've been around the block for quite a bit, and been working with some pretty big retailers. Um,
Mhm.
what got you into thinking about not just doing the installs and working on the vehicles, but to pick up a camera? Because this is extra work, right? You already have
Yeah,
a job ahead
yeah,
of you to do what you
yeah.
need to do, and now one day you decide to pick up a camera and record it and maybe put it on YouTube.
Yeah, it started because electrical before was like my biggest weakness. So I had the opportunity to make it into a strength and really understand 12-volt vehicle electronics. And then I kind of had a knack for it, and I like learning, but I also like explaining. And people have noticed that like I can convey ideas well. So I figure, okay, well, you know, people are doing it on YouTube. Why don't I just try it and try a couple tutorials and try a lot of theory? And theory was always like kind of the basis for my strategy online, because 1 + 1 is always 2. So there's a lot of relevance when you focus on theory.
So theory and learning, that doesn't really explain to me though. I understand how you want to learn, but where did you get the inspiration to teach? Because really, that's what it is, isn't it? When you start recording and sharing all this information of you working on these vehicles to strangers online.
I guess because I was good at it, because like my grandmother was a teacher, so was my mother, and then I was always kind of around it. And when I would work with sales staff, you have to train and teach all the time. So I was able to do it very well on a daily basis. So kind of like it was a natural progression to start doing YouTube as well, because I figured like, oh, okay, I can actually get paid to do this as well and spread knowledge and also help people do better work by showing them what we do every day.
Now, when in your earlier videos when you started, what was the kind of subject or topics that you were covering in the beginning?
It was a lot of 12-volt car audio. So it was like how to do a head unit install, how to do a speaker, checking fuses. It was things that I would figure out that were searched quite a bit, and then I would see how other people were doing it. And I'm like, okay, I think I can put my own spin on it, and I can make it a more polished product. And I always try to like see if I have ideas that no one's ever done before, they're slower for people to find, or if there's ideas that I do all the time, I'm like, hey, it could be conveyed better, then that's what I'll focus on. But now the landscape's changed quite a bit how I do things. I do a lot of projects because I have a bigger following now.
Well, obviously you do have quite the following, and we're talking about your following. Man, your audience is what, 75%, 80% American at this point,
Yeah,
20%
yeah.
Canadian, international even. So obviously you've grown beyond borders, you've grown beyond your local region. Let's talk a little bit about your setup, because a lot of people watching were probably watching because they're interested in how you do what you do and maybe inspiring them to do something like what you do. What is your setup? Is it a simple phone? Are you using, what type of camera equipment are you using? Talk to us a little
Okay.
bit about the technical stuff.
80% of what I do is with my phone. As long as you're close to it, I find that the audio is really good. Also, here at Certified Auto Sound, the shops are really beautiful and clean, and that helps me a lot. So lighting is also key. So if you're in an area where you don't have good lighting, you have to bring on auxiliary. Here at the shop, I have a really good lighting, and then I use a gimbal a lot now. That smooths it out. Like the phones have a lot of ability to smooth out the video, but then when you add a gimbal that can auto stabilize and everything, it really just adds to the quality. Because when I talk, I like to still use my hands. You don't see me on camera a lot, but I like to express with body language. And the problem is if you're holding a camera, it kind of starts to get all jittery because you're doing the hand motion. So those are little tricks that I do, is just good lighting, gimbal, use your phone, stay close to the phone to get good audio. That allows me to be fluid in the shop still and do little snippets and not gear up too much and get too much in the way, because it is inefficient when you're trying to do a job in video. So I usually do them after hours now.
So a pretty simple setup, really. We're not talking
Yeah,
about no studio grade, giant gimbal that you're carrying around. Do you use a tripod
no.
very often?
The gimbal has a built-in tripod as well. And if you look at our builds videos that I do for Certified or my own, where we actually showcase the videos, I'm using a SLR with a tripod and slider to kind of just give it more of a polished look at the beginning, just to get people inspired and when they see it, because it is an art form when you try to do these things.
You know, um, I have to say it, and I'm sure every guest I'm going to talk to this evening is going to say the same thing. Where do you find the time? Because a lot of people don't realize is filming is just one piece of the puzzle.
Mhm.
Planning it, transferring all the files, and then editing. How do you find the time to do that and balance work and family life?
That's the hard part. I've definitely made some sacrifices and I've toned it down. So like I do less videos now. So I kind of go one, maybe three a week. Three used to be my old average, but focusing with family time and my kid, I go down to one. So like one day I film, and then maybe it's not till like halfway in the week I actually start doing data transfer and start reviewing the footage and then editing. So I might film it like 2 weeks before and actually don't actually post it till way later on.
Okay, fair enough. How long have you been on YouTube now? Your channel, you said?
Technically, it's been on since 2011, but I've been like officially working at it for about 8 years. I'm going on 9 years right now.
Okay, so let's say it's about 10
So
years. Have you
yeah,
noticed that the demand or the comments from your viewers of what they want to see as far as content goes has changed? And maybe you can give us an idea of what's kind of the hot ticket these days. What do people want to watch?
it it's kind of seasonal because I actually probably have the most popular 350Z or 350Z channel now. But people kind of know that when I take it off the road, I focus on my truck, or we focus more on 12-volt things. And then people like kind of just know now that have been watching me for a while, like, okay, it's March, he's going to bring out the car again, we're going to see a bunch of car videos. So but they're vocal, they're just encouraging. I have a really good following. It's been a slow build up, but I have a really good core audience where they tell me if they don't like stuff and I listen, and they're very encouraging. They let me know when I'm on the right track for content.
Um, I mean, we're talking about influencers. You're one of them. Who do you go to, and who do you refer to when you need some influence or you need some inspiration? Who are you watching right now?
I watch a lot of I do watch a lot of Dean for like when it comes to 12-volt stuff, because I think he's really the benchmark for when it comes to doing anything on any level, especially when it comes to basic foundations. I also watch a lot of Car Wizard recently because it's a little bit of a dry material the way he presents, but he's so good at working on cars and diagnostics that, because even though he's a mechanic, I try to take that thought process to how I do things. So I've been learning a lot from him, and I watch the Fast Lane Truck too because they have a really good review style and they're very objective. So I like to take things from other industries and mix it in, as well as watch people in the 12-volt industry as well.
Yeah, I noticed that because you do a little bit of mechanics too, right? It's not
Yeah,
just 12-volt stuff all the time, so it's a blend, and I think that makes actually you kind of unique, to be honest with you. So kudos for that. You've having said that, because you work through different types of categories, you've had a chance to work with, I'm sure, a lot of brands. Are there any brands that really helped you over the years, kind of help you develop or get to where you are?
besides like 12-volt, obviously, like, we have like JL Audio, Kenwood. I recently started working with a lot of Blam product as well, Stinger, but I've also worked with like Roadmaster Active Suspension. They were helping me out a lot. STB Canada has been helping me out a lot. Um, IJDM Toy. I have videos featured on MechMan as well, alternators. Like there's a list of a lot of manufacturers I've worked with, but I wanted to take a spin on it because I don't want people to think I'm like this commercialized YouTuber and I'll just work with anything if I get free product or money. I've never gotten money for doing anything. I've just tried to collaborate with them because I try to work with brands that I trust and I actually believe in, because it's in my own vehicle. And that's how I want to convey myself, is like, if I recommend something, I'm using something, it means something because it works.
That makes a lot of sense, and good on you for that. I get it. It's easy to kind of side with brands that want to help you out, and you need the help sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But at the same
Oh yeah.
time, it's kind of important that you stay brand agnostic so that we feel that your opinions are genuine and is based on
Yeah.
completely your experience. And I think that's one of the big draws. Are you always trying to find ways to improve, or you feel you've kind of gone to a point where this is what we're going to see and you're comfortable with your style, or how do you see that evolving?
Definitely always going to improve. You can't do anything or progress by yourself. And right now, in my current environment, working with Tyler Nault and Adam Yamamoto, these guys I think are tops in the industry. Like, you can put them up against anyone, and it's an honor. And it's also a little bit intimidating to work in a shop with guys at this caliber. But I've noticed that my learning and thought process is changing rapidly. Like, even just my toolbox setup has changed drastically. How I lay things out, how my work processes are. I think you're going to see just a lot more refinement in my work, and it's going to become slowly more complex as well.
Well, with colleagues and teachers and mentor, whatever you want to call them, like that, certainly there is a lot to learn. Tyler, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously one of the top guys out there.
Mhm.
many might even be a little jelly that you're in that situation. So good on you. Uh, what's next, man? I mean, you're one of the biggest YouTubers in the 12-volt industry in Canada. Unless I may be wrong, but I haven't found one yet. So for sure, that's why you're here, and you deserve every bit of it. But what's next? You know, what plans do you have moving forward for 20? How do you make this bigger and better?
One thing is, if people are following my channel, we are working on a custom home shop right now. So we're building a custom home, and I wanted to, because I'm trying to be a liaison for aftermarket, and there's a lot of things that we want to do that take more time. So it's a 1,200 square foot shop. It's going to have a 4-point hoist that hoist is nothing small. It's going to have a 14,000 pound capacity on it because we work on a lot of 1 tons. And I wanted to create this studio / productivity center where, you know, me and my friends can hang out and build stuff and do it properly. And I think it's gonna be cool because you don't see a lot of people that have a facility like that at home. So we're gonna bring some neat things in terms of facility and how we do presentation going for 2021.
That sounds pretty interesting. I can't wait to see what that's going to visually look like and how that's going to impact the look and feel of, you know, the way that your channel looks and all your videos look.
It'll change a lot.
Absolutely. Anybody you want to give shout outs to, man?
I just want to thank Certified Auto Sound for giving me the opportunity to work in this environment. Visions Electronics, you know, supported me for so many years. I learned so much and got a lot of foundation from there. And even you know, mentors I had back in Future Shop when I first started, like Marone, and Claudio Piccolo, those guys when I first started, really helped ease me into the industry and work my way up. And you know, it's just this crazy wave. Just keep riding, it just keeps getting better.
That's amazing, man. Anthony, man, just keep it up. That's all I can say. Keep it going, and we really look forward to seeing more of your videos. And obviously, this is not your last time with us on CMA of any kind. So, cheers, brother. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. That was Anthony from Anthony J350. You make sure you check out his YouTube channel. We're not going to waste any time. Our next guest is somebody that I personally have been watching for a while. It's hard not to. They've got certain series of videos that are just so intriguing. You just want to see what happens next. They have a clever way of kind of dividing them up into parts. And once you finish one part, it's like binge watching. You got to watch it all the way through. I'm going to take a little second here. This one happens to be pre-recorded because we really want to sit down with Dean Bayette from 5 Car Stereo. Him and Fernando have been doing some pretty amazing things, and they influence a ton of people. Their sheer metrics that they have going on, as far as the audience that they have generated and following that they have generated is, man, it's pretty darn impressive. So we had the chance to sit down with Dean, and here's what, you know, enjoy the interview. Because throughout our entire season, all these people, interesting people that we've had on the show, especially from the installer standpoint, you know, they talk about what inspires them to continue doing great work and being creative. And your name has come up on quite a few occasions. So congratulations for that. Know that you are directly impacting some of the best installers in the game.
Well, I mean, that's a great honor. And, you know, I stuff like that just kind of, you know, leaves you speechless, because we're just two dudes in an install bay that put stuff in cars. And we were one day thought it'd be a great idea to turn on a camera and film it. So, you know, anytime we hear stuff like that, it's pretty amazing. You know, before COVID, we used to have people stop by the install bay. People would take vacations intentionally in Clearwater, Florida. So they, you know, hey, yeah, wifey, we want to, and then they'd swing by and stop in. And, you know, it was really kind of odd, but we've adjusted, you know.
And you know what? Your humility is pretty much consistent. I went all the way back in the beginning of your videos, all the way to the last few videos, and that's always been there. So know that you and Fernando as a team, there's something special there. It keeps people engaged, and we're going to get all into that. But before we get into the mean potatoes of what is right now, we want to get the story of how you got here. Dean Bayette, have you always been a car audio fanatic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, high school was that turning point, I feel, for everyone, when they went from I'm riding my 10-speed bike to I have my first car. And I grew up in the 80s. So that's kind of like that tipping point where car audio was just starting to be a thing. And even though I was never a big music fan, there was something about bass that just, oh yeah. So, sitting in that school parking lot in the morning, pissing off everybody around you just sounded like a really cool idea.
So bass, subsonic frequencies turned your crank back in the 80s. When was your first foray into the business side of things?
The summer of 1990, a friend of mine went to work for a shop that I worked for, a shop that I bought equipment from. And they had a mishap with some of their employees and they needed people to come work there. And he called me up and was like, hey, man, I know you have another part-time job. Do you want to work here as part-time? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. I mean, sign me up. I'll definitely do that. So
your first, right out of the gate, you had an opportunity. I'm guessing that was from the installer side of things.
No, I actually started out as sales.
Sales first.
They needed somebody to work Saturdays because the owner hated working Saturdays. And he was just like, I consider myself an installer. I know I can talk and do all that fun stuff, but he just needed somebody that knew car audio, could talk to people without blushing. And so I was hired to do that. And so that's how it started. It was like, hey, come do sales for me. Sales naturally snowballed into everything else. And then the next thing you know, it's like, I worked there for like 21 years. So at that point I had done everything when I left. But yeah, eventually it turned into installation and manager and all that fun stuff.
Fun stuff. So obviously this whole evolution of you throughout, playing, wearing every hat, right?
Oh, yeah.
So help me connect the dots from that point to hooking up with Fernando for 5-Car Stereo.
So like I said, 21 years at that place. And then it just got to a point that things weren't jiving anymore. The economy, that was like 2008 or something, whenever that big crash, 2006, 2007, that time. And I was just like, I needed to get out of there because it was very depressing and I couldn't take it, mentally fatiguing. So I went to work at 5-Star. He had never had an install bay before. He came from Ohio. Paul Ahuja is the guy that owns 5-Star. His brother's Bob Ahuja. Some of you guys might know who he is. They started American Base together, and then Bob went one way and Paul went the other. And he had never had an install bay. And he's like, listen, I need someone to do this. I have this bay, which is the bay that's in all the videos. And so for about the first 2 years, it was just him and I going 100 miles an hour. And it was like, I need some help. And Fernando was a installer at another shop down the street that would come and buy stuff from us. So he was there almost every day with something. And, he didn't really know much. And so when it came time to hire someone, Paul was throwing names at me and I was like, well, what about Fernando? And the idea was really appealing to me because we had done some work for them helping, like he could never do steering wheel controls. He absolutely hated steering wheel controls. So every time they had one to do, he would come see me. I'd walk him through the process. And so we kind of built up a rapport there. And that led to, hey, man, do you want to come work for us? And he was super worried because he's like, I don't know what you know. And I was like, I don't care. Don't worry about it. I mean, you don't even need tools. Like, we'll take care of that. Just, I need a body and somebody willing to learn. Mm-hmm. And he's way exceeded any expectation. The years and years I've trained guys, nothing has been like Fernando. And I keep telling him, like, if you quit, I'm done. I can't do this again.
It was said right here on CMA Live, Fernando. If you're listening.
Oh, he knows. It's like, no, man.
Okay, so you guys hook up. Obviously, there was chemistry. You took him under your wing. You took him under your wing, rather, and it evolved. Yeah. Let's fast forward now to the point where, you know what, guys? We need to get on social media. What was the first concept, idea, project to get onto social media?
So the social media thing actually started at the other employer. When Facebook was happening, I was developing the website. I was handling all of that. The first Facebook thing I ever had was just the shop's Facebook. I didn't even have my own. So it was, I came up with this idea and I pitched it to the owner. Said, I think it'd be really cool if we could do like a weekly show where we talk about, install stuff and products and just something like that. And at the time there was really no way to do that. Like the iPhone wasn't even out yet. So it was just like, So it kind of got put onto the back burner. And then one day I was like, things were moving along. Canon had the G9, which is one of their cameras, and I had one of those. I have tons of cameras. And I was like, you know what? We could probably use this now to go back to that vision I had. And we started the first video we did was just a basic 5-minute like unboxing. And the idea was to use his Spanish and my English and combine them together and just do a quick unboxing video. And it was a total nightmare.
So the first concept was an unboxing video. That was your instinct. Yeah. That was where you wanted to go. Okay.
Well, so I wanted to do training. So it was daylight savings time always gets us. It's like everyone always comes back. Now clocks automatically do that. But that always bothered me because I hated to stop what I'm doing to go hit the hour thing. So I thought, let's do an instructional video on that. But before we could do that, we just had to see if the concept worked. So we just did a basic. And the goal was to just go onto Facebook. It was never to do anything YouTube.
Oh, interesting.
Because Facebook is local. Facebook is people you know. Facebook is more geared around your area. So we thought it would be cool to do that. Little did we know, Facebook sucks for that. So, it didn't work out the way we had hoped.
Obviously, there's been an evolution in your offering as far as your platforms. You do different things now, right? You have your car audio talk. You do your installer diaries, which is I don't know how many episodes you're up to now.
I don't either.
You're right. There's a lot. You have a YouTube live show. So obviously, you understand what has happened is that you've kind of separated your presentation depending on what message that you're trying to convey. The first thing I want to say is, I can't be the only one to think this. I'm in the game. I'm producing social media content, but I'm doing this sitting at a desk. You guys have cameras rolling from inside the car, under the trunk, while you're soldering, while you're working the computer. It's unbelievable how much footage you're getting, and yet still what seems to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a very efficient process of getting the job done. So please share with us a little bit about the challenges, because you make it look seamless. But I know people watching are smarter than that. That is a ton of work.
Well, I mean, it kind of okay. I've always been a camera nerd, so my passion, when you're young and car audio is your passion, that's cool. You have another job. Then it becomes your job. And then you have to find something else that's your passion. So mine fell into photography. And so working a camera, it was second nature. Like, I'm the goofball that can just hold it up to my and do all this without having to go, what's going on? So when we transitioned, unboxings was the first thing. And we would have cue cards, and we just basically watch nightly news and saw how they did it. And for unboxings, that was super easy. We'd just write all our notes down, read the cue cards, do the videos. And that was it. When we took it into the install bay, which is something I didn't want to do, that was all Fernando's idea. He was bugging me. We got to do this. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it, because I just didn't want to deal with all of that. Oh my God, these guys, or oh my God, they're doing that. And it's like, whatever. I just didn't want to deal with that headache. So it's funny. The day he was out sick was the first time we filmed something in the install bay. I was like, you know what? Let me just try this. And then from that, we did it all wrong. We bought a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't need, and it just was terrible. So, but from that, we figured out the workflow on how this needs to go and the shots we need to get and the process that's involved with it. And because we're the people that are doing the installs, capturing the footage that we need, we have a really good idea of that, which is one of the things I get when people go, why don't you hire an editor to edit your videos? And I'm like, because they wouldn't understand the story we're trying to tell. And
that was literally my next question. Is there a hidden person behind the scenes? Because we're just talking about capturing the image. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about transferring them, post edits, graphics, uploading. Yeah. This is all you?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Okay. So it started out, we do 2 videos a week. We used to do Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then at some point, I don't know what happened. And that transitioned to we're just going to do stuff every day of the week. We've since backed off on putting out a show Monday because we do the Facebook Live show. Mm-hmm. And I needed that one extra day, which we're actually going to go back to doing a rebroadcast show on Mondays that we did for a little while. And we're going to go back to that now. But, no, I have a workflow. Typically we film all day. We have, I don't know, half dozen or so cameras and lenses and microphones, and I mean we have a full production studio at work. It's silly what we have.
I mean, sometimes you see certain shots of fill lighting that you might have set up. Obviously a lot of the stuff you do is also first person. So
Yes.
But as far as microphones, are you guys like lavalier mic all day long? No, okay.
No. So So the other thing too is you have, like, just like car audio, you have to know your equipment. You have to know the limitations of your equipment. You have to know what your equipment is capable of doing. So the first person shooter stuff that we do, I like to do this as my imitation of that. The camera that we're using is specifically designed for that. So as long as you're within 3 feet of the microphone with the screen popped up facing yourself, the way it works is your voice will bounce off the screen into the microphone. So you don't need to have a lavalier to do that. If we are going to be like, if you watch anything where my hands are doing the cooking show stuff, as I like to call it, there is a microphone aimed right at my face. So we have a bunch of boom mics that connect to those cameras and aim at us. Every camera does have a microphone on it. So even the GoPros are mic'd, whether we use that footage for time lapse or if we use it for mics, it doesn't matter. Everything has a directional boom mic on it. One to cut down left and right noise, because sometimes we'll both be talking at the same time. That way we can get the car done in a timely manner. But you have to have a mic that is directional. Otherwise, it'll pick up everything that's going on in the bay.
Yeah, because sometimes your garage door's open, and I'm sure.
Oh, it's always open.
Yeah,
the
right.
garage door is never closed.
Exactly.
That's
And
why there's a soundtrack.
exactly. And if you don't mind, we have listeners and people are watching this that want to get into producing their own content. So any of this information that you could share obviously is critical. All right. So I mean, I'm on your YouTube channel right now, man, bro. Congratulations, you guys are like close to 160,000 subscribers that watch you guys unbox stuff, do wiring, and like how to install stuff. And sometimes it's simple stuff, sometimes it's more complicated. My personal favorite is when you have to undo somebody else's job and redo it again properly.
Oh, 911, dude.
I love those.
Those are my least favorite. I love shooting them. I love doing all that, but I hate doing 911s, mainly because that means that somebody out there got a bad experience in our industry.
This is true.
And I had to fix it, which means that guy had to pay twice. And it just irritates the hell out of me, because this is what I do for a living. Everything I own is because of Car Stereo. Everything I've ever done is because of Car Stereo. And to think that there's somebody out there that doesn't respect it that much and is willing to just slap some crap in and move on to the next one, it just sucks. And I get it. There's places that do that, and they're very successful at it, and that's fine. If that's your business model, rock on. Mm-hmm. But qualify your customer. I mean, if they want better, give them better. But yeah, those are real popular.
I hate to say it. I love watching them. I can't stop. I need to see the next part. What you do, and so.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me. When we do the 5-part version of that, we address people. Now here you go. This is the.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
There's the plaque, and of course this is dad points through the roof.
Really? Does this make
dad points
popular?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, what kid doesn't watch YouTube?
Absolutely, 100%.
Every single kid watches YouTube, and then my daughter, though she'll never admit it, because we have our own channel that we do, The Boring Life of Dean and Haley, and but she's like, yeah, my dad has one of
those. But she's really proud about it, that's for sure. All right, so here we are in 2021. You're starting to get your gears going again. What can we expect from the team at 5 Star coming up this year?
Well, we have some stuff, some plans that we're working on. One of the things that we really liked doing was interviews, and we used to have people come into the install bay, and we would interview them, and we'd find out about how they got into the industry and stuff like that. And through this whole thing, we kind of didn't want to do it like this. Unfortunately, no dig at this. It just wasn't anything we were wanting to do, but we're getting to the point where we miss doing it so much. We're probably going to get back into doing that in some way, shape, or form. We don't know how yet. We're also we had a podcast that we did a couple of years ago, and we just kind of let that slowly burn out, but we'll probably get back to that this year too. So, and then of course, some crazy installs and install diaries. So it's just more.
whatever you do, don't stop the install diaries. I'm sorry, I'm just being selfish now.
Oh,
Just,
no. Hey, trust me. You know,
Those are-
there was a time when we were like, we're going to do one a week and that's it. And then it was like, now we're only going to do 2 a week and that's it. And it's like, all right, so we're just going to do these and we'll do some unboxings and some reviews throughout the week or the year or the month and just deal with that. So,
my last question to you, and we'll close this out. We've got a lot of young, enthusiasts, passionate installers that are getting into the game now, especially with a little bit of the boom that we're experiencing. What message do you have for them starting out? Because it could be intimidating when they want to get into maybe sharing some of their jobs and some of the challenges they may face. What advice do you have for them?
I mean, just be honest. Just be honest. Don't try to be something you're not. Knowledge is learned and gained, and it takes time to get there. Everyone nowadays just wants to walk into something, put their tennis shoes on, and go run as fast as they can, and that's fine. But you gotta kind of pace yourself through this. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Just give it time. You don't have to be the best guy in the world the first year you're an installer.
All right, another question I absolutely have to ask you, Dean. What is going on about the tool drawer?
So affiliate links are kind of one of those things that as a YouTuber you do, meaning like YouTube pays you, but it's not enough to like live off of or even be sustainable. And Amazon will take affiliate links, meaning if you click on a link on our page and you go to Amazon to buy something, we get a small, couple pennies here and there. Well, it got to the point where people were asking us, hey, what is this tool you're using? Hey, what is this you're using? Hey, what is it? And so every video would just have this list of affiliate links. And it just got to the point where it was like ridiculous. So I was like, what would be better if we just came out with a website that just had pictures of all the tools that we use, and you could just click from there. So anytime we use a new tool, anytime so for example, like Audio Control came out with the LGDs, everyone was like, where do I get an LGD? What is an LGD? How do I find an LGD? So it was like, there's affiliate links. You just go to DNF Tool Drawer, go here, click on that, and you can get your LGD, and everyone will be happy. So it was just a website we put together to kind of consolidate everything we do as far as like tools and stuff like that. So we called it the Tool Drawer. And
it makes total sense. And I know a lot of installs that refer to it. So again,
that was the other thing too, is we wanted to, it's like, if you're an installer, these are the tools you should have in order to do your job. Like one of the tools that was like super popular, which I saw it somewhere in, CCTV for testing backup cameras. I saw somebody use it and I was like, I'm like, what is this? And so I was like, oh, this sucks. So finally, I figured out what it is. I went, I bought it, we tried it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So we put it up on the tool drawer. And we're like, hey, if you need this, this is what it is. This is how it works, and you can go buy it here. So it's just it's there again. It all goes back to the simplest thing, where it's like, help as much as you can. There's no secrets anymore. There's no, if you do a good job and he does a good job and he does a good job, we all have done a good job. Great. If one of you guys over there sucks, well, hey, I can't help you.
Very good. Hey, Dean, I can't thank you enough again for spending this time with us. We got to know you a little bit better. And all we can say on behalf of the CMA team is keep on doing what you're doing and keep on being that influencer, because we do enjoy it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Well, there you have it. That was Dean Bayet from the 5-Star team. And might I say that T-shirt that he's wearing, that Jeff Smith T-shirt, by far the coolest T-shirt that's anybody has worn on CMA so far. So a big shout out back to Dean for taking the time with us. Our next guest barely needs an introduction. Former, installer of the year, music, audio design, part of the Master Tech, gang of top quality, top-notch teachers and fabricators. His name is Matt Schaefer. Matt took the time to sit down with us, and we are going to be able to share with you how that interview went as well. And here we go. Matt Schaefer is a name that rings in so many circles. We have the pleasure of talking with some of the top movers and shakers in the industry. And, when it comes to whether we're talking to Brian Schmidt over at Mobile Solutions or we're talking to, Chris Cook over at ME, your name has come up, right?
Mhm.
And what I wanted to get out of you tonight is a little bit of we want to get the story. We want to know about Matt Schaefer, how, your a little bit of your background, your journey to where you are today, and a little bit of where you're headed. So on that note, have you always been a car audio fanatic?
So I would say that based on my age, I'm kind of a product of, the early 2000s coming up in this movement when you have Yado and you have Steve Brown doing the Alpine cars. So for me, that's kind of what brought me into the industry, along with it's kind of cliche to say, but like the whole Fast and the Furious movement, because that's what was popular as I was getting into high school and at the time when I was about to drive. But, what got me into, the Segways, I had four-wheelers when I was growing up, and I just kind of got obsessed with modifying them. So, it just kind of segued into naturally cars where I would kind of modify friends' cars at high school, and I did my own car, and that's kind of where all of this obsession kind of started. And then obviously grabbing a Performance Auto Sound magazine or a Super Street magazine and seeing what people were doing with cars and that natural evolution of wanting to be there someday. Which it's funny because this whole episode that you have is influencers, and it's weird to even be mentioned in that category because a lot of my influences are now my friends. You know what I mean? So it's coming into this, the people that I'm friends with now are the people that got me into the industry,
Amazing.
So yeah, it's fun. It's been a crazy ride, and it's obviously an honor to be even kind of mentioned in that kind of category.
You mentioned, you're a product of the Fast and Furious era.
Yes,
well, let me tell you something, sir. We are all products of the Fast and Furious era. There are some old school cats in this game that have been around, since the 80s and 90s. But let's be honest, how cool is it to go to the Hot Import Night shows or go to SEMA and CES and see this trick? I mean, you mentioned the Alpine Alien cars. I mean, that blew my mind the year it came out, and certainly inspiring. So to know that you're a product out of that generation is very interesting to know. Let's connect the dots now. When did you become a professional within the 12-volt industry? What was that story?
So professional is, I ended up moving to Florida, and I attended Universal Technical Institute in Orlando, Florida. And by doing that, I knew I always wanted to do the car audio side of it, but attending Universal Technical Institute kind of let me become a master of the entire car, because, I've always told people you can't really be a master of your craft unless you know the entire craft. And for car audio guys, that's the 12-volt side. And then you have the 5-volt side, which is the mechanical side. So kind of connecting all the dots to know that if I ever do something that impacts another side of a car, that I have enough background to diagnose that. So that's really kind of the technical training that I have for what I do for a living. And then because I did that in Orlando, at the end of my tier in Orlando, I started at Circuit City there while I attended UTI. And then before we moved back up north, back to Maryland, I attended Installer Institute. And that's when I went to fish camp. So I would say, obviously Fishman Dave Rivera, he was the first real person in the industry that I got to see firsthand build stuff. And that kind of opened up my eyes to what's possible with fabrication. Because before, I was doing a lot of fab, but it was more of just superficial panels where there wasn't a lot of stuff inlaid within multiple panels. And then seeing him build, it's okay, you can do an inlay into an inlay into an inlay and have all this intricate detail. So I would say that that's kind of what kickstarted everything professionally. And I was working at Circuit City at the time, and then moving back to Maryland, and then working for Tweeter. I worked for a motoring shop where I basically did engine swaps and, really mechanical upgrades. So I kind of have the full background of, the car versus really just be isolated to car audio.
That I feel certainly comes through in the way you even describe your jobs in your YouTube videos. And of course, we're going to get to that. Let's just fast forward now to that point where you are now named Installer of the Year. What was that like? And was that pivotal in your career?
So it was absolutely pivotal. I would say the first time I was exposed to even the industry as a whole was 2014. That was the year Tom Miller won Installer of the Year. And that was the first year that I partook in I would say the Installer Awards, the Emmy Awards. And I was in the top 12. And before then, I didn't know anyone in the industry. I knew nothing. I only knew the shop that I was working at. And really, I could only compare my work to the work that I saw in magazines because, Facebook hadn't really exploded yet. At that time, I was in that circle of the industry. So it was that year where I saw Tom win and saw the recognition and admiration he had for like the whole industry. You know what I mean? And I just kind of witnessed that. And at that point, it became like an absolute goal that at some point in my life, I'm going to win that award. And hopefully I can achieve the same respect and admiration from the industry. And the following year, obviously I didn't win that year. I mean, Tom had it in the bag. The following year I had one runner up, which, kind of like fuels you even more because you get so close and you just kind of turn it to 100. And the year after that, obviously I ended up winning, which, I'm not sure for the people listening if they even know the story, but I ended up flying home that night, or I would say that day before the award dinner, because my wife was about to give birth to our second child. And, she was having contractions earlier that morning, and I ended up flying home before the award ceremony. And during the plane flight, I had Wi-Fi and I was able to live stream the Facebook feed of the awards. And as we start descending, they cut off the Wi-Fi, and that was right as they were getting into Installer of the Year runner-up. So I had no idea what was happening until the plane landed, and then I reconnected the phone, and then my phone was blown up, and then I had realized what happened. So it was a very silent celebration, but it was like it's something that you just don't forget. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very cool story to tell. It was very meaningful in its own way, even though I didn't get to like celebrate with people on stage and never truly had that moment. It was still very, very cool.
Influencer show, I can't not mention your Mosaic channel. We spent a lot of time on there. You've got some incredible projects that you work on, and you give us a glimpse of the level of fabrication and the thought process that goes behind all of your jobs. And you mentioned something earlier on about when you went to the Fishman camp and he opened your eyes to the different layers.
Right.
Well, the same statement could be said for the type of content that you're putting out, that you're opening the eyes of the different thought process, layers, materials, all that stuff that you're putting out right now. So talk to us a little bit about the Mosaic project and what that's all about, and your goal with that YouTube channel.
So the whole YouTube channel really started out from basically a how-to video on how to carbon fiber. A Canadian friend, maybe that you guys know, is Sean Bashara.
Oh, we know Sean.
Yeah. So he told me to make a how-to carbon fiber video, which I did. That was the first video I've ever done, which has like over 1 million views now, which is kind of funny because it's really a quite terrible video based on the quality and the sound and the mic and all that kind of stuff. But it started as that, and then the rest of it kind of started as practice for the Installer of the Year videos. Because in the Installer of the Year videos, you're basically showing a project that you're doing, explaining it, doing a video walkthrough, whatever it is. So like the first couple of videos was basically just that. It's like practice. So the next year that I have the opportunity, if I make it to the top 12, I can show the video in a much more professional fashion. Because getting into all this, like, I did not know how to edit video. I did not take pictures. I didn't do photography. If anything, it was my worst fear is videography. And even the first video that I submitted, I basically said, I don't even know how to get the pictures of the project in the video. So here's a link to the pictures so that you can look at it. You know what I mean? It was that bad. So like I said, the whole channel just started as a practice for when I get that opportunity again, if I were to get that opportunity. And then all of a sudden I started seeing inquiries and people asking about projects. And then all of a sudden people are traveling for projects, and the one thing about YouTube is once you post a video to YouTube about a car that you do, I mean, that's a living ad that sits there forever, that anyone that's ever interested is going to type in keywords that are going to be similar, and it's going to pair to your video. So, there's still videos that I do. I mean, the carbon fiber video, there's inquiries I get on a weekly basis of people asking me to do like one-off carbon fiber projects. So that's kind of how the whole channel evolved. And I would say Musaic evolved from when I made the transition from where I worked in Virginia to now at Sound Effects, where Musaic is basically, you call it the Magnolia Best Buy or whatever it is. It's a boutique side of Sound Effects where, it's really just me doing the larger projects all the way through. So I do all my own sales. I do all my own install. It's really kind of a one-man operation, if you will. Every now and then I'll get occasional help depending on how busy we are or what else is going on. But pretty much it's a one-man operation to where, I'm doing the full project. And then, like I said, at the end of the project, just document it well, take very, very good photographs, take a good, concise video, try and explain as much as possible in the video, put it on YouTube, and then it becomes basically an ad. And then that will live there, and that'll, give you a wave of inquiries for the next project that comes in.
Well, I can tell you without any hesitation that some of our top fabricators that we have in Canada, be it, the Tim Baileys or the Marty Adams Checks or even the Sean Bisharas, they talk about, your work and the way that you create the things that you do, and also the methods that you have in place. You mentioned something that I definitely want to segue to, and that is your podcast, the Old Fashioned Car Audio Podcast. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about that and what is the passion that drives you to put something like that together.
So in creating that, it was an idea that Gary Bell and myself had, and Gary Bell has a long history with Alpine and their project cars, and he works at Define Concepts in California, and he's super talented. He kind of does the same type of stuff that I do. So we have a lot of the same type of clients. We do the same type of systems. We have the same crazy ideas when it comes to like trying something new rather than just staying in your comfort zone. And I would say, like, when we're at, a mobile solutions training, I would say out of all the different people, Gary and I probably work the best together because we both have like a try anything mentality and, go up to the wire mentality and, just let's do something different, right? Let's not do something that you're going to get done. Let's do something that is going to wow people, and it's also going to challenge you. And him and I talked about doing this podcast for a long time. And the podcast is really to speak more towards potential clients, right? To where it's the guy who is looking to get stuff done, the guy who had an audio system in the 90s, in the heyday of car audio when, it was all fun and they were in their 20s, and now they're 40, 50, 60, and they have a nice car and they have the money to spend on that car. And obviously they don't want just any random shop to, obliterate their car. And in 2020, really when anyone shops, we're the product of over research, to where you're going to go to YouTube to look stuff up, to be educated before you go into a shop. You're going to, if you got to get a vacuum off Amazon, you're going to look at 30,000 reviews to find the best vacuum, so that you're making the most of your money, or you're not getting ripped off, or you're not going to make the wrong decision. So the same is to be said for this podcast. It's going to hit for certain people, and there's clients that have called or people that have called from YouTube that have said, hey, you should do a podcast. Because you get more of the organic conversations with different people. And that's also the fun thing as well, is when you have different guests on, just the segues of everything come into really organic and fun conversations that we generally have at like a Knowledge Fest together, to where, we don't plan anything. None of what you hear on that podcast is ever planned. We never prepare any questions. It's just completely organic. Just like, when you go to a Knowledge Fest in the industry, sitting at a bar with a person talking about, car audio or the industry or just life. So that's kind of like the whole background of what that podcast is based on.
And where and how and when do we catch that podcast?
So generally it drops every Wednesday, I believe. And you can find it on Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, any place that you can find a podcast.
Fantastic.
So there's already about 7 episodes. We have a lot more in the bank ready to go. And a lot of like really good guests lined up. So that's a fun thing about doing this with Gary, is he's in California with all the fun people. So he has a lot of the good relationships to where he can get some good people on.
Awesome. All right. So that's the Old Fashioned Car Audio Podcast. I got 2 more questions for you, and we can round it out.
Mm-hmm.
Who are your top influencers that keep you going, and sometimes that you might look towards for inspiration on those times that you need some of that?
Well, Fishman, Steve Brown, and Chris Yotto are the 3 people that got me into the industry. And then you have my close group of friends, which would be Brian Schmidt, Chris Pate, Jeremy Katz, Jeremy Carlson, Doug Dobson, Tom Miller, all those guys just really help. We all help push each other, because you see something that somebody else does and you're just like, God damn, that's really nice. And, that's just what keeps pushing you and fueling you to not keep you stagnant and not keep you in your comfort zone. And kind of like what you were saying about installer of the year and what that means. And, I've always felt that there's a ton of pressure that comes along with that, because, anytime that you put a build log out or a YouTube video, there's a certain expectation that goes along with that. And the tough thing sometimes is the client doesn't have the budget to do a certain tier of an install, right? So you still have to try and figure out how to make it different, how to make it unique, but also, this isn't a hobby, this is a business. So we still have to make money on the job, right? And that's really the tough thing to balance, because I feel like there's so many people in this industry that, on a certain trunk build, they're making no money on the job based on them just trying to throw the book at the install, and they're doing it for 10 days, even though realistically they're getting billed for maybe 2. So you have to still make money, and on a job where you are doing something cool, you just have to, I've tried to force myself out of the comfort zone. So
my last question, and I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent, but what can we expect next coming up from Matt Schaefer for 2021, man?
Man, 2020 was a tough year. 2021, I just want to keep the momentum up. I don't want to put any pressure on myself by any means. It's tough because when I look back at the year that I last had and some of the projects that I did, you always look at that and you're like, man, how the hell do I top certain builds? But at the end of the day, you just have to trust where the creative comes from. And, that's a weird thing. Like, I don't draw stuff out. I see it in my head and I build it. And it's tough because it's like, an artist doing a painting, right? You have a very approved painting or a popular painting, and then people expect the next painting to be better and better and better. And obviously there's a lot of pressure there, but at the same time, you just have to trust your own growth and your own ambition to be better. And naturally, everything that you do should be better. So, it's really just trusting that for progression from here on out.
Okay, you guys heard it right here on CMA Live. Matt, I can't thank you enough again. Keep on doing what you're doing, brother. We love watching it. We love seeing what ideas and crazy fab you come up with. So don't you ever stop doing that.
I'll try not to.
All right, have a great year. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Make sure to check out SiriusXM.ca/SXV300 to learn about all the amazing benefits of adding the Connect Vehicle Tuner to your SiriusXM Ready car stereo, including how to save 2 ways with 3 months free, plus free tuner after $80 rebate. All right, guys. So our next guest has literally created a huge following online through YouTube, and it started out testing old school car audio amps. His name is Derek Williston, and you might know him through Williston Audio Labs. Take a listen to our in-depth interview with Derek. Hey, Derek. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us here on CMA Live.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate you guys having me here. This is an exciting show.
I'll tell you what, we try to bring the goods when it comes to the themes that we cover. And this week, of course, we're talking about influencers. And, Williston Audio Labs is no joke when it comes to a resource and a powerful tool that influences so many passionate people about car audio in the industry. There's so much I want to talk about, Derek. Why don't we start from the beginning? Everybody knows what you do. And we've seen the videos. Every single one who's watching this podcast has at some point seen your videos. What I want to know and what I want to extract, Derek, is how the heck did you get into doing this? Because, it's a pretty unique lane. So let's back up a little bit. Were you a lifelong car audio enthusiast?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ben. And I've been over this a little bit before, but I'll dive in as deep as you want to go. So I started off in car audio way back when I was about 15 years old. My brother had a system in his RX-7, which is the first gen RX-7. He had 6 subwoofers, and there were 2 12s, 2 10s, and 2 8s, and a Punch 150 powering them all. So I was blown away. This little car, these little hatchbacks, bass like crazy. He had all the dancing little lights on the dash, real exciting stuff. So me being a 14-year-old kid, looked up to my brother. It's like, man, I really got to get into this and learn more. So like everybody else, I collected the Crutchfield catalogs. I collected the car audio magazines, all of them. And I was always really, really interested in the amplifier test because I was, like anybody else back then, you were saving up all of your money and you had 2 things that you really wanted to buy. One was a subwoofer or multiple subwoofers, and 2 was an amplifier. And some of you guys who are watching this or listening to it may or may not know, but amplifiers used to be really expensive. These days it's pennies per watt. Back then it was dollars per watt. So it was very important for me to make sure I spent my money well. So I would look every month in these magazines to try to find out what kind, what were they doing the car test, the car amplifier test, and which one performed the best, which one was the best bang for your buck, those type things. So fast forward a little bit, years later, I got out of car audio, and Ben has mentioned this before that he kind of got into home audio too and kind of left the car audio scene. Well, late in the 2000s, around 2008 or so, I got on YouTube and noticed some videos there where people were showing off old car audio equipment, the Punch 45, the Punch 150, things like that. So I got on eBay, just did some searching and find out, wow, you can get a lot of these amps for cheap. So I started buying a few and they started piling up, on my desk. And I was like, well, maybe I should do something. I've been working with video editing since around 1999 or so. And just always loved doing video editing, mostly home family movies and things like that. But then I started watching YouTube and I was like, I could probably make a video that people would want to watch. So then I decided, let's do some more amp tests, right? Because the magazines back in the day did tests, but they were very few and far between. So I was like, I can buy some equipment, buy me an oscilloscope. I can, talk to people like Tony DeMore and find out what's the best way to do this for the money, build me a real Frankenstein version of a load bank using a PC case. I'll have to send you a picture of that, Ben, so you can see it. It's pretty impressive. But then I just said, well, let's just start testing amps. And mostly it was old amplifiers in the beginning. And then I got to the point where people wanted to see the newer equipment. So then I just started testing the newer equipment, and it kind of grew. I come across on the channel as I do in life. I try to be humble. I try to not come across as knowing everything. And I try to come across as the average person. Say, this is how I use this equipment, or this is how I know how to use the equipment. So I think that perspective reaches a lot of people, because a lot of people get kind of nervous when they see somebody who's an expert, and they say, well, I can't ever do that because I'll never be as good as this guy. So I prefer to come across as an enthusiast, somebody who's just like you. And so that's what I do.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit here, Derek. I want to talk about the Derek footprint. So we have your Williston Audio Labs main YouTube channel. Do you have a podcast as well that you co-host with Hi-Fi Vega?
Yes, 12 Volt Talk is our podcast, and it's 12volttalk.com. Yep. So Rob and I decided a few years ago, I guess it's been almost 3 years now, where we wanted to kind of bring some of the industry people together. We also had some people who maybe haven't been interviewed that we've heard stories about, that we wanted to get on camera, get the audio recordings, get it out there. Just to find out every different aspect of car audio, everyone from enthusiasts to installers to marketing people to amp designers, pretty much the gamut across the board. And it's so important for us to get that, because, we're probably going to talk about it here in a little bit, but the publications, the magazines, the things that used to be around aren't around anymore. So we've got, this is our medium, and this is what we want to use to, make all this information public for everyone.
And absolutely. And I think what you're doing ultimately is those are just offshoots of your main brand, really. I mean, your entity and what you do. And, this very episode is exactly what you're talking about right now. And that is about those people out there that are influencing the industry and influencing those who are either in the industry or maybe even influencing those that are looking at getting into the industry. And we're definitely going to segue into that. Let's talk about your setup. So you say you have a little bit of background in video editing, because obviously if you can't YouTube properly if you're not doing your own video edits. But what are you using right now? How has that evolved as far as your gear to test the equipment?
Yeah, so this one is an ever-changing set of different items. Okay, first off, the amplifier dyno that I use by SMD and Demore Engineering is something that came out around 2012, 2011, I think. I believe I've got number 13 or 14. So I've got a pretty low number of the one they've created. So what this is it's pretty much a piece of hardware that allows you to hook up your amplifier. It's got speaker leads on the front. It has leads on the back that hook into your power source. And then you run a test tone into it, or a test tone into the amplifier, and then the speaker outputs that go into the amp dyno. It measures the wattage output, and it has a few different versions of, the output. It can do a test at 1% distortion up to clipping, and it also does a dynamic pulse test. So that's the main piece of gear. And I've talked, about getting an audio precision, some of the other test equipment out there that's available. And, those things are really expensive. And I know Dave has got one that's on your show quite a bit. And I know there's a lot of other people that use those. It's kind of been the industry standard for many years. But I think in car audio, people would tend to agree, at least over the past 5 or so years, that the amp dyno has really gained a lot of following and a lot of trust because of what it does and how simple it is to use. The other thing, Ben, that we're always talking about, updating the equipment is batteries, right? So you think about it in your car, you've got a charging system, you got batteries, and you hook up your amp and all your system. Well, on a test bench, you've got to either have power supplies, batteries, or both. So right now I have 8 14-volt batteries. I have 4 100 amp power supplies that I can run to those 8 batteries, but I'm getting ready to upgrade to the excess power lithium battery cells, and I'm going to redo my bench so I can support a lot more power. Right now, I'm about 4,000 watts is what I max out at. I can do a little more than that, but I'm looking to try to bump it up to around 10,000 watts. Because as you know, if you can't do 10,000 watts, you just need to get out, because all these big amps that keep coming out. Why do people need that much power? I don't know, but they
since when was this about need? I don't remember ever saying anything about need, but I tell you, it had me at lithium.
I think they want to run it at 8 ohms. Maybe is that what it is?
Maybe that's what it is.
they're SQ people. They just want to run at 8 ohms.
But you totally had me at lithium, though. I mean, lithium's where it's at. There's no question about it. Okay, so I want to get into your head a little bit. You're into the production. We've talked about the type of tools that you use. What is your message or your process with production of every video that you come up with every test video? What is, I'm sure that in your mind, when you start the video, you have a mission that you want to accomplish and that you want to deploy. So what is that exactly for you?
The biggest mission for me, Ben, is I try to create content that I enjoy watching myself. And I don't mean to sound vain in any way, but I go back sometime and watch some of my older videos and I'm like, wow, that kind of kept my interest. I enjoy that. If I enjoy the content, I've got to think that some other people will. So my main idea is provide the data the best way I can with making as few mistakes as possible. There are videos that have mistakes. I try to correct them. It is what it is. YouTube doesn't allow you to fix something and then kind of put it in place. You're just kind of stuck with that. But, try to get good content, exciting content, and make it entertaining. People don't want to come and just watch the numbers count on an amplifier dyno. You have to show speakers moving. You have to make jokes. You have to pick on yourself. You have to do things that entertain people as well. So I like to think that, when I'm finished with my video, it's something that people can watch, they can learn something, they can be entertained, and just have fun. That's what it's all about to me.
Okay. As an influencer and as somebody who is so engaged in producing content, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, which I'm pretty confident you're going to remember. So the first question is, what was the video when you realized on the amount of views that you just went from here to there?
Yeah, that was probably one of the early audio pipe 1500 watt amplifiers I tested. I had no idea the audience that really wanted inexpensive subwoofer amplifiers. And that's the kind of video that has got the sweets and the sours. And if you know what I mean by that, it means the sweets and, you're seeing some good numbers, you're getting a lot of feedback. But then the sours, you're getting the haters, you're getting the people that don't believe this test is valid. You get all these people questioning everything you do. So that's where the point where you're right. It tipped a little bit and it's like, wow, okay. It's good to get more views and have more people engaged, but you have to be careful because trust me, anybody who's done this content, anybody that puts a video out, you can have 1,000 positive contents. Somebody can hit you with one that hits you right in the gut. And it's like, man, it just makes you so mad. And you have to learn to kind of put your blinders on and say, this one person might have had a bad day. They might just have an agenda against me, whatever it is. You got to block them out. Cause I can tell you, energy vampires is a term I heard recently. And that's what we'll call these people. They are energy. They'll suck out the life of you just trying to waste your energy and trying to respond to them. And you've got to ignore them and you've got to stay on the positive side.
It's useless retaliation.
Useless.
Totally useless.
Because anytime you try to provide any information to prove that whatever they said was incorrect, it's waste.
With facts, no less.
Right. It's a waste. It just is feeding the monster that they are. So exactly. You've got to focus on the positives and focus on what you're doing.
All right. Over 40 million video views, 215,000 plus subscribers with over 1 million monthly views. That is very significant and very impressive. Be honest with me, Derek. How big is the Williston Audio Lab Army production crew behind your entire, brand?
Yeah, I have a difficult time paying all the people that help me out because it's one. Yeah, Ben, it goes without saying, you can be the best at installing, you can be the best at whatever you want to do in car audio. If you're not rounded and have the ability to do some video editing, do some photo editing, do some social media posts, things like that, you really kind of have to be rounded in order to do this right. Now, you can always ask for help, but my thought is, if you have some skills in each of those, that's going to help you out. And what you'll probably notice is the ones like Mark Cardio Fabrication, like Dean, Steve Mead Designs, some of the other guys, EXO, these guys know how to do video editing. They know how to do photo editing. They know how to do the sound. There's a lot of really important parts of bringing all your content together. And the more rounded you are and all that, the better. But what I would say to anybody who's out there who is not rounded in everything is just start, right? Just start putting your content out there, and people will help you and showing off what you can do. And if you're passionate about it, it'll come across in the video, and you can learn everything else as you go. But it is important for you to realize that you kind of have to do a lot when you make your own videos and your own content.
And you know what's funny? I'm just going to comment on that, is that whatever skills you may not have, there's probably a YouTube video on it.
That's true. That is very true. And I think we've all utilized that aspect
100%.
before.
This is a perfect segue to where I want to take our conversation next. And that is, there is a new generation of content creators out there that are just coming up. And some of them are into car audio. So while I have you on the line, I'm going to ask on behalf of them, first of all, who are you watching right now?
Wow. But obviously Mark Cardio Fabrication, Steve Mead Designs, EXO, Contralto. I watch Soundman. I watch Anthony J, who I think is also on the show here. Gosh, there's so many. Dean at 5-Star he has literally got the library or the encyclopedia of content. If you need to know anything about anything to be installed, you just go to YouTube and search it up. And Dean's probably done a video about it. So he works more than anybody I know in the industry. So those for sure. And there's always new guys coming up, and we've interviewed some of them on our 12 Volt Talk show. Some of these younger kids that are doing great stuff, and they're building up subscribers really quick. But again, make sure you're not in it just for the notoriety and just for the fame. You have to do something that you enjoy doing, or you're going to burn out and you're going to go away.
Well, you heard it right there. I was going to ask you what advice you had, but I think that's the message that you've kind of been consistent on all evening. You know what? We're kind of out of time, and we can go on forever, and we're definitely going to do a part 2 of this at some point, Eric. Last question I have for you. What is up next for Williston Audio? Looking forward. I want to know. I want to hear it right here. Go.
So, 2021 is going to be a big year for Williston Audio Labs. I'm so excited about some of the things I have planned. Ben, in the past, I've done home audio, I've done portable audio, I've done mostly car audio, but I just want to do things that I really enjoy. So I'm going to keep doing that. If it's something that you guys like and want to see, you're going to see it. If it's something that you may be like, wow, where did he get that from? That's another thing that's very interesting to me. It's just trying to keep the content exciting, not make every video just alike. I want to do it so we mix it up a little bit. But we've got a lot of really cool products I wish I could talk about, but I'm not going to, because that's part of the fun is what did Derek test this week? So that's, you just have to wait and see, have to subscribe. And when it hits your inbox, you'll know.
You will know indeed. And you know what? We're going to make sure we have all your links to your social media platforms so everybody can find you. Mr. Derek, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, congratulations once again, and good luck for 2021. Really looking forward to what you test next.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate you having me, and anytime I can come back, I'll be glad to talk more. So thanks again. You guys have a great night.
Sounds good. Take care, Derek.
Take care.
All right. So our next and final guest of the evening. What a great evening it's been. I had such a good time interviewing these guys. We want to round out this collection of influencers with somebody, from our team in Canada here, fellow Canadian, who's actually been abroad for quite a few months. And if you'll know that if you join any of his calls with his palm tree backgrounds and everything. And his name is Tony Denke. It was very important for us to bring Tony on because he represents a different side of the industry, which is the business side, which is the retail side. And we had the chance to sit down with him so we could understand, hear about his story and what he does. So let's go ahead and bring him up. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised to see the type of things that he has going on and what I feel, and you'll see me say it in our interview, I feel is very important to the industry, what he's doing. Hey, Tony, I can't thank you enough for being with us. When we put together an online influencers episode, we wanted to look at it from, every different angle. And what you bring to the table and the perspective that you bring to the table, I think is very unique. So thank you for being on with us today.
No worries. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and hope I can, contribute and bring value to people. So
I love your humility, and I think that's part of your charm. So let's start where we always like to start with these type of interviews. We want to understand Tony Denke, the individual, your background before you got into being the weekly gathering of people in the 12-volt industry, in the 12-volt biz that's clearly identified. Where did you start? How did you get to where you are right now, real quick?
yeah, well, so started out, working in retail. I got into car audio as an enthusiast when I was 16. I'd always been into technology and audio gear before that. My dad had a big Pioneer component stereo, and figured out how to hook that up and, play with the equalizer and stuff like that. Didn't know what I was doing, but, played with it. So when I turned 16, it was just natural to, get a CD player in my car, and, got a Kenwood singled in and a pair of Kenwood 6x9s, and, grew from that into, Rockford amp and subs and speakers, and, hung out at my local audio store, and finally at some point, they needed someone to help out. I went in on a weekend with a buddy of mine to buy some subs with them, and their car guy had left, and they were like, "Hey, would you mind just hanging out for the day? You don't have to sell anything. Just talk to people until one of us is free." And that ended up with a couple of Saturdays, and then they figured out I knew about computers, and they needed a hand with their point of sale system and getting their inventory cleaned up. So I'd go in on the evenings and do that after hours. And I don't know, I think maybe a year later I was working there full time.
So from the get-go, Tony Denke was on the sales side of things when it came to mobile audio.
Yeah, Tony Denke is not very good with his hands as far as crafting and making things. I'm much more of a technical person and a theory and understanding. If you talk to any of my friends or any of my staff, they will tell you not to let me near a soldering iron or a saw of any kind. But when they run into, hey, why doesn't this work? They're more than happy to have me jump into a vehicle and, start to troubleshoot or diagnose from a technical standpoint. But you definitely don't ever want to see me do fine precision work. My hands do not have that ability. The hand-eye thing is not one of my blessings.
So staying in the sales lane now, you're working at a retail store, and then obviously you make a jump, because when I first heard Tony Denke, you were a rep.
Yeah, so I worked retail for about 3 years, and then when I was 21, I got a call from one of the distributors that we dealt with, and they said, "Hey, we've got an opportunity for you, that we want to talk to you about, to actually move out to the GTA and look after, I believe it was Southwestern Ontario." And I declined that, and I think 2 or 3 months later, they called me back and they said, "Hey, we've got a different opportunity for you," and they were partnering up with another distributor that I knew well and worked with, and this time it was Manitoba, Saskatchewan. So worked with a lot of great companies and a lot of awesome retailers. I got exposed to some of the biggest retailers in our industry in Canada, and, worked with a lot of solo shops and guys that were just starting out a shop and building up. and everything in between. Got into doing judging for DB drag racing.
Okay.
I was a judge, and drove around with one of the Corbon trading light bar sets and computers in my car for basically almost 4 years, or 3 years anyways, I guess 1998 or 99 until 2002.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm taking this time to kind of get your timeline, because I want our audience to understand that you have the experience, through your career, through all those different, positions that you've held and all those different roles that you've played. And this is culminating now, you've done this road thing, you've done this rep thing, and then you opened a retail shop.
Finished up repping, and I took a little bit of a break from the industry. It was actually a 12 Volt Insider website that sort of got me reinvigorated and reinterested in the retail side of the industry at the time, and made a move back to BC and saw an opportunity in Abbotsford, renamed to Driven Audio, and ran Driven Audio, built it up from non-existent empty space to when I sold it in the spring of 2017, with 6 staff at the time, and doing seven figures in business a year, and having a lot of fun, but just saw for me an opportunity that I think is rare in our industry, which was to sell the store successfully and at a profit, and pursue some other interests that I had, and just sort of figure out a new chapter.
You sold the store, and I heard you talking. You said you were ready to maybe embark on a new adventure. So what happened next?
So I sold the store. I went traveling for a while, came back, had some ideas around what I had worked on at the store, which was trying to help automate and reduce the number of steps in the daily process of working in the store, creating a quote and an invoice, and then having to set up a calendar appointment and then do a paper check-in checkout sheet. I really like that idea. From scratch, building 12volt.biz toolbox, and creating that unified scheduler, SMS reminder, check-in, checkout app. And I spent a bunch of time learning just how web programming works and how software as a service apps work on the web, getting a little bit of a technical understanding around that, and then found a developer to partner up with to get the first sort of, what would they call, an MVP, a minimum viable product, stood up, and then just been chipping away at it since then. So
okay, so now we're to the present, and this is where I want to spend most of our time today. The show, circling back to the theme of the show. The theme of the show is about influencers, and clearly, with everything that I've seen between what you're offering and, of course, your weekly, I'm trying to figure out how to call that, because it's such a unique thing. Is it just a roundtable, a get together?
Roundtable. I just call them calls.
Calls,
video calls. But
absolutely.
Roundtable or something.
Yeah, absolutely unique. And I guess what I want to ask you now is, in your words, what's your mission to influence the 12 volt industry? What is your footprint?
So, my footprint is that I have 12volt.biz, and that's a product that, I'm hoping gets, successful and lets me bounce around the world and do all the rest of that fun stuff. I think that one's fairly self-explanatory. The calls on the other side, and people ask about this, why I don't promote the product more on them and that type of thing. And the truth of it is that the calls for me are really just about trying to give back and help the industry out, and to really be able to focus on, issues that retailers or salespeople are having. I do 2 separate calls. I do one in Jay Cook's 12 Volt Sales Pro group, so that one's more sales oriented, and then the other one is in a group that I started, the ME Retail Leaders group, and that one we talk more business. But both of those, I really just want them to be about whatever is guys need help with, or ideas or topics that get brought up, or that I see that I think retailers need to be thinking about. And I bring it up, and if they want to talk about it, we talk about it. And sometimes the idea just falls dead, and we don't talk about it. But I got to bring it up. So that's the purpose of those. And I spend, I don't know, probably between 3.5 to 5 hours a week actually doing the calls. Most of the time they're about 2 hours each. Sometimes they go a little longer. And then just in my normal reading of industry groups, and then business articles and in the magazines and stuff. If there's things that I see, you try to bring those up. But really, they're there for retailers or salespeople to be able to come and say, hey, I don't understand this. How do we make this happen? How do I overcome this? The best topics are the ones where guys come and say, hey, I'm having a problem. Today we did a call and a retailer was like, how do I change like the incentive package for my guys to go from something that they don't know, is now established, and now they want to change it to grow a different category. And how do we go about doing that? So we had a few people on the call and kicked around some ideas, and now they have some ideas they can go chew on. And it's great, especially for smaller retailers or retailers that are a little more remote or don't have as many contacts in the industry, because most of us end up in our own little box with our four walls, and it's this little shelter, and you don't have places to go and spitball ideas. So for people, I think it helps out with that. So in a way, maybe they're a little mini mastermind too.
I need to comment on that, because I've been on some of your calls, as you know, and I mean, the range of guests or participants that you have, Tony, is pretty impressive. You have everybody from a very, like you mentioned, a small, independent shop, maybe a one-man operation, all the way to like a really recognized, established, award-winning retail shop and the top installers. You even have a couple of manufacturers that jump on once in a while. So it's a real blend of all walks of life and all different types of people within the industry. But what I love about it, and I think you nailed it on the head here, is that it's an open forum to be able to connect with industry peers and discuss challenges that you may be facing, especially from the business retail side of things. And that's why it's so important that I wanted you on the show, because I want people to know about this. If you don't know about it, how often does this happen, and what is the format? So for those that haven't been on your calls yet.
So the calls happen Monday nights and Thursday nights, 9 and 9:30 Eastern time. So after hours, where guys can focus on them. In North America, it's tough to hit all the time zones, but those work for me and work for North America. And the format is a Zoom meeting, and it's open for people to talk in. I act as a moderator, so I try to call on people, and people put their virtual hands up so they can privately ask a question that I can bring up if they don't want people to know it was them that asked. So there is an anonymity to it, or people can ask themselves. And then we just go around the round table, and people can ask further questions, can give examples, can try to help discover a solution or unpack something that maybe they hadn't thought about. And go from there. And it's a lot of fun, and it's open to anyone in the industry. The retail leaders call on Monday. While it has a bit of a business topic, I mean, we can talk about anything with that. The sales call on Thursday, we try to keep it a little more sales oriented, obviously. They're a lot of fun. I'd love to see more guys on them all the time. But I get a lot of PMs from guys that don't participate in the calls but listen, that are really thankful just for the opportunity to hear talk about, especially the business side of the business, because it's not sexy. I mean, talking about numbers or marketing and stuff like that, it's not the same as fab stuff, or
but it's so necessary,
talking about a killer. Oh, it's critical.
I mean, I can't express that enough. So you talk about timing, right? So here you are, you started this call, COVID hit, obviously, and so, man, people are connected more than ever virtually. What are a couple of the themes or the challenges that have come through the pipe and through discussion that you've seen in the last few months that are really to note, that you want people to know about?
Yeah, well, so it was really interesting that we started these pre-COVID. I think it's actually almost the 1 year anniversary. We might be 1 or 2 weeks short of the first Sales Pro call we did. So largely before COVID was a thing on people's minds. So with the calls, getting people through that lockdown stage, being able to have a forum for guys to talk about how to handle staff, how to talk to clients about wearing masks and cleaning hands, dealing with the various government programs, the PPP and the programs that the Canadian government had as well. And that was an interesting one because, on these calls, we had Canadians and Americans. So different sets of rules, different sets of programs for different retailers, talking about how to market yourself during these, like doing live calls, reaching out, and people tried really cool ideas. Like I think it was Pete in Florida who had the idea of doing a virtual car show, and he did one. And then Larry Penn had heard about it, so he did a spin on that. And those came through those calls, and we kick the football around for ideas for guys to do that. So that's a huge one, obviously, is getting guys through that. And then I think the other big one is, we've had some newbies on the calls, or guys that are newer to the industry, and for them to be able to ask questions and get answers, not from one person, but from 3 or 4 different people, or half a dozen people, and be able to then take the best of each one of those ideas and put them together for themselves. I think that's something that's very cool as well. So I think those are probably the 2 standout things for me so far. And then I think the third one is, there's been times where guys have had a real struggle, that something's been going on, and they've just had a place to be able to come and talk and vent, and it be disconnected from their normal daily social circles and support circles, but be able to talk to people that really understand what they're talking about. So when you say business is down, or you're having a problem with a staff member or something, like, okay, you're talking to people that can relate to that. So it's
100%.
I think, yeah.
That's really interesting, and again, I can't stress enough how necessary this is. So again, kudos to you for creating that format. Really, Tony. I mean, I was talking to Derek Willison on this show, and he said, we've been doing that for about 10 years now, and you're not quite 10 years into your formats and what you're offering, but it takes a certain amount of passion. You mentioned yourself, you put in 5 hours a week just on the call. Never mind the research that you do to stay on top of industry news and the trends that are happening. Is there enough passion there to fuel you through? Because what I'd like to know is, where is this headed? Where's this headed?
Yeah, I mean, my personal passion is there for sure. I do think about, and I've asked guys on the calls, like, about the format of the call, and what can we do to make it better. So at some point, maybe looking at taking the time to break the calls into segments and be able to post them as smaller digestible chunks. Because, obviously if you're like, oh, I see they talked about this on this call, but, where in that 2-hour ribbon of time is the topic that I'm interested in, if you weren't listening live. So playing around with that a little bit. The big one for me is that as long as guys are coming and asking questions, then I'll continue to want to do them. If it devolves to just a social thing, okay, that's going to be tougher for me to stay as interested. I like socializing, but I'm a bit of an introvert, so sometimes it's a little awkward for me. When it's just kicking the can around, my brain gets more engaged when there's like a problem or a clear topic of discussion. So
yeah, it totally makes sense, and I can only see that format flourishing over the next period of time, because there's such a inherent need in this dynamic, ever-changing environment that we're all dealing with, especially on the retail side of things. Tony, it's clear you have a message. You have an important role to play in influencing our industry. So I encourage you to keep it up. I encourage you guys listening, if you're tuning in either live or watching this pre-recorded, if you haven't had the time and you own a shop, and obviously our listeners are shop owners and installers, take a Monday night, take a Thursday night, call into Tony Denke and his calls. You'll see me there. You'll see a lot of industry leaders there, and sometimes just regular shop owners. There's so many of us. There's so many of them, right? And the pool of information that is available that you are putting together, Tony, is invaluable, and I want you to know that.
Oh, thanks. I hope it is. I mean, it's, that's my true desire out of this, is that I call it that guys get actionable content, so that when they get off that call, they've got, a note scribbled down somewhere that's like, hey, tomorrow or next week, we need to start to do this, or I need to learn more about this, or whatever it is. Because if they're not getting actionable content, if they're not taking action on it, then it's not time wisely invested by anyone, by myself or by them. I hope that they're getting that. That's my big desire out of it, is that these guys get actionable content that leads to them being more profitable or more successful, or having less stress in their life, or making their jobs easier, or all of the above, which would be ideal. So so thank you for that. It very kind of you to say, and I really do hope that it helps people, but it's a lot of fun doing it too. So.
All right. Well, Tony, I can't thank you enough for joining us today on CMA Live. I wish, I'm going to say I'll see you later, but actually I'll see you probably on your next call. So I'll get to be on your call next.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You have a good one. Take care.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. Well, there you have it. What an interesting night learning about all these interesting characters. I feel like we're probably going to have to do a part 2, because there are so many more influencers out there that we'd love to connect with. If you've got comments, if you have ideas for us, don't be shy. Here's our digits just under us. I put them up on the screen. You can email us, visit our website, CanadianMobileAudio.com. Hit us up on, Facebook or Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere too. But we're always looking for great ideas. And I feel that, showcasing people who make a difference within our industry and who dedicate their time and their efforts to providing resources and being influencers, man, that's a knuckle crunch moment. Definitely 100%. Okay. So we've got some really big news coming down the pipe. I can't talk about it yet, but we're going to be back here in 2 weeks. We also got our connected videos. We've got a really special one coming to you this Friday, where one of our Canadian distributors, Trends Electronics, is celebrating their anniversary, and we're going to get one-on-one with them and get to know all about Trends Electronics this Friday on CMA Connected. That's at noon Eastern. And other than that, man, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for all our guests. Once again, big shout out to Anthony, to Dean, to Matt, Derek, and of course Tony. And that's it. So thanks for joining us for another episode of CMA Live presented by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.